Welcome to African Folktales by Tammy. Please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more interesting stories. Also share this story to someone who might be interested. Let's get into the story. The first time Angela Okafor laid eyes on Maxwell Dooney, she was 22, a fresh graduate of business education from Crawford University and full of dreams. She had gone to a friend's wedding in the heart of Omakwa City, where she found herself seated at the same table as him. The atmosphere was lively, music from the High Life band filled the air, guests laughed over plates of coconut rice and grilled turkey, and the newlyweds danced under the golden glow of chandeliers. But for Angela, the entire world seemed to pause when Maxwell Dooney introduced himself. He was different from the other men she had encountered. His confidence was effortless, his humor light and infectious. He had the kind of charm that drew people in without trying too hard. Unlike some men who acted aloof or arrogant, Maxwell Dooney was warm. He asked about her dreams, her ambitions, and listened with genuine interest. Angela, usually reserved around strangers, found herself laughing at his jokes and sharing stories she had never told anyone before. By the end of the evening, she had given him her number, something she rarely did so quickly. The following weeks were filled with late-night calls that stretched till dawn, stolen lunch breaks in the bustling cafes of McKean Street, and long walks through Ezi Park where they talked about everything: family, love, and the future. Maxwell Dooney worked as a financial analyst, and even though his job demanded long hours, he always made time for her. He never rushed their moments together. He never let his work become an excuse for neglect. When he first told her he loved her, it wasn't over an elaborate dinner or in a moment of grand romantic gesture. It was in the quiet of her mother's kitchen, as she washed plates from the dinner they had just shared. He simply leaned against the counter, watching her with soft eyes, and said, "Angela, I think I've been in love with you from the moment I heard you laugh that night at the wedding." She had turned to him, her hands still covered in soapy water, and for the first time in her life she believed in the kind of love that felt effortless. Their courtship lasted a year and 6 months, and when Maxwell proposed, it was everything Angela had ever dreamed of. It was intimate, thoughtful, just the two of them, at the place where it all started, Ezi Park, the same spot where they had spent hours talking about life. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, tears welled in her eyes. She had no doubts. Maxwell was the man she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. Their wedding was a grand but elegant affair in Emeka Hall, attended by family, friends, and well-wishers who spoke endlessly about how perfect they were together. You two were made for each other, people would say, and Angela believed it with every fiber of her being. Marriage only deepened their love. Life as husband and wife was beautiful. Angela had expected that marriage might change things, that routines might replace romance, but Maxwell made sure that never happened. He would leave notes for her in unexpected places, inside the pages of the books she was reading, tucked into her purse, even on the bathroom mirror, reminding her of how much he loved her. His job kept him busy, but never too busy for her. He would rush home after work just to have dinner with her, even if he was exhausted. On the nights when he had to stay late at the office, he would call her and talk to her until she fell asleep. Their love deepened even more when their daughter Bella was born. If there was one thing Maxwell loved as much as his wife, it was his daughter. He was the kind of father who woke up in the middle of the night to rock Bella back to sleep, the kind who never missed a doctor's appointment, who changed diapers, who proudly carried her around the house, singing lullabies. When Bella was 3, she ran into Maxwell's arms one evening, giggling as she wrapped her tiny arms around his neck. Maxwell had kissed her forehead and whispered, "I would do anything for you, my little princess." And Angela had smiled because in that moment she knew their love had created something beautiful. They were the family people admired, the kind of couple others wished to be like. Maxwell and Angela never fought over petty things. They had an understanding that people envied. Angela felt safe in her marriage, confident in her husband's love. For 6 years, their home was filled with warmth, laughter, and the certainty of love. She had never once doubted him, never once suspected that beneath the perfect surface something was brewing. She had no idea that her world was about to collapse. The weeks leading up to Bella's 6th birthday were filled with excitement, laughter, and a mother's dedication to making the day perfect. Angela Dooney had spent countless hours planning every detail, determined to give her daughter a beautiful and unforgettable celebration. From the moment Bella had innocently asked, "Mummy, can I have a princess party this year?" Angela had taken it upon herself to turn their home into a magical fairy tale. She envisioned an enchanting evening where her little girl would feel like the most special child in the world. With her heart set on perfection, she began making arrangements. She contacted Dripple's Cake Delight, a popular bakery in Macondo district, to order the most exquisite pink and gold cake, a 3-tier masterpiece topped with tiny edible crowns. She found a seamstress to design a custom dress for Bella, a soft pink gown with delicate lace that made her look like a miniature princess. For days, Angela scrolled through online vendors, picking out matching decorations, banners, and party favors. She carefully selected each guest, sending out handwritten invitations to family, close friends, and neighbors. Bella's school friends would be there, along with their parents. Everything had to be flawless. Through it all, Maxwell was by her side. He had never been the type of husband to dismiss her enthusiasm for planning events. Instead, he encouraged her, making sure she never lacked anything. When she hesitated over renting an inflatable bouncy castle, worried it might be too much, Maxwell had smiled and said, "If it'll make Bella happy, then let's do it." He sent her extra money for the decorations, went with her to pick up supplies, and even called a party entertainer to surprise Bella with a live cartoon character performance. Every night after Bella was asleep, Angela and Maxwell would sit together, discussing the final touches. They talked about the menu, jollof rice, grilled chicken, small chops, and Chapman for the adults. They debated whether to get a DJ or just play music from their home speakers. It was during those moments, sitting in their living room, surrounded by balloons and unopened party supplies, that Angela felt the most secure. Looking at Maxwell, she saw the same man she had always loved, the same partner who had been present through every step of their journey. His affection never wavered. If anything, he seemed more attentive than ever. When she got tired from running errands, he massaged her shoulders, reminding her to rest. When she worried about anything going wrong, he reassured her. Not once did she suspect that the worst betrayal of her life was lurking beneath the surface. Not once did she see the signs. The day before the party, Angela stood in the kitchen, carefully preparing some of Bella's favorite snacks, mini meat pies and sausage rolls. Maxwell walked in, leaned against the counter, and watched her in silence. She turned to him and smiled. "Tomorrow is going to be amazing," she said, brushing flour off her hands. "Bella is so excited." He nodded, smiling back, but there was something unreadable in his gaze, something distant. If she had looked closer, if she had paid attention, maybe she would have seen the hesitation in his eyes, but she didn't. Instead, she walked over, placed a kiss on his cheek, and whispered, "Thank you for always making things easy for me." Maxwell wrapped his arms around her, held her for a second longer than usual, then kissed the top of her head. "You deserve it, Angel." She melted into his embrace, never imagining that the man who held her so tenderly would break her heart into pieces within 24 hours. That night, as she tucked Bella into bed, the little girl beamed up at her and said, "Mummy, I have the best parents in the world." Angela smiled. "And you are the best daughter in the world." Her heart was full, her home was filled with warmth. She had no idea that next day would destroy everything she believed in. The morning of Bella's 6th birthday was bright and full of promise. The sun cast a golden glow over their home in Omakwa City, and a soft breeze carried the scent of freshly cut flowers from the backyard. Angela stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the delicate silver necklace Maxwell had bought her on their 3rd wedding anniversary. Today was a special day, and everything she had envisioned had come together beautifully. The backyard was transformed into a wonderland. Pink and gold balloons swayed gently in the wind, fairy lights twinkled under the canopy, and a magnificent 3-tier cake stood at the center of the decorated table. Laughter and chatter filled the air as parents arrived with their children. some bearing wrapped gifts, others holding trays of food. The aroma of jollof rice and grilled chicken mixed with the sweet scent of cupcakes, creating a festive atmosphere. Angela stood by the entrance, welcoming guests with a warm smile. Her heart swelled with joy as she watched Bella run around in her princess gown, her face glowing with excitement. Maxwell was right beside her, making sure everything ran smoothly. He greeted guests warmly, played with the children, and even helped the photographer organize group pictures. If there was a moment to capture perfection, this was it. As the afternoon wore on, Angela stole glances at Maxwell, feeling grateful. He had always been a wonderful father and husband, and today was no different. He made sure she lacked nothing throughout the entire preparation. The love he showed toward their daughter was undeniable, and his presence made everything feel complete. As the party reached its peak, with children gathered around the entertainer performing magic tricks, Maxwell Dooney suddenly cleared his throat. "Everyone, may I have your attention?" he said, raising a glass. Angela's heart swelled. She smiled, thinking he was about to give a speech, perhaps to thank everyone for coming or to appreciate Bella's presence in their lives. She reached for Bella's hand, waiting for the words that would make this day even more special. Then he spoke. "Angela, this may come too sudden, but I want a divorce." The world tilted, the laughter died, the music faded into a distant hum. The sounds of children playing blurred into nothingness. Angela stood frozen, staring at him, waiting for him to laugh, waiting for him to say he was joking. But Maxwell's face was expressionless, his grip firm on the microphone. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. "This isn't happening. This isn't real." A murmur swept through the crowd. Eyes darted toward them in confusion, disbelief painted across every face. A birthday celebration had turned into something else entirely. "Maxwell, what are you saying?" Angela finally whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm saying I don't want this anymore," he said flatly. Her hands trembled, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She tried to move, but her body refused to obey her. "Why?" she finally managed to croak, her voice cracking under the weight of the moment. "Why would you do this? Why here?" "Why now?" Maxwell sighed, rubbing his temple as this was a mere inconvenience. Then, with an air of carelessness, he spoke again. "Angela, you're too simple, too archaic, too decent. I'm tired of your outdated ways. You don't understand what it means to really live. I want a woman who knows how to enjoy life, not someone stuck in her little bubble." He shook his head as if disgusted and then continued, "I need more. I want someone young, someone exciting, someone adventurous and sexy." The words struck her like a blow to the chest. "What, Maxwell, we have a life together. We have a child, you adore her, you adore me." "I thought I did," Maxwell cut in, "but I've changed, and I don't want this anymore. Honestly, I feel like I settled. I convinced myself I was happy, but deep down I knew I wanted more. I deserve more." Gasps rippled through the guests, some exchanging horrified glances, others looking away, embarrassed by the unfolding scene. Tears streamed down Angela's face as she grabbed his arm. "Please, Maxwell, think about what you're saying. You're ruining everything. You can't just throw us away." Bella, who had been gripping her mother's gown in confusion, looked up at her father, her innocent eyes filled with fear. "Daddy, you're not leaving, are you?" Maxwell turned to his daughter, his expression softening for a moment. "I love you, princess, but I can't stay." Bella let out a choked sob and ran toward him, clutching his leg. "No, please, don't go." Maxwell hesitated, looking down at the little girl clinging to him, her cries tearing through the tense silence. But then in one swift motion he pushed her away. Angela gasped, grabbing Bella as she stumbled backward, her tiny body shaking with sobs. "You're heartless," Angela whispered, clutching her child tightly. "How could you do this to us, after everything?" Maxwell inhaled sharply before delivering the final blow. "I've taken everything, Angela. The house, our savings, it's all mine now." The words echoed like gunshots in the silence. Angela felt the ground slip beneath her feet. Before she could react, he pulled a folder from his pocket and tossed it at her feet. "These are the divorce papers. Sign them." Then, without another word, he turned on his heel and walked away. Angela collapsed onto the ground, her body racked with uncontrollable sobs. Bella screamed, trying to chase after her father, but he never looked back. The guests stood in stunned silence as mother and daughter cried on the cold, hard floor. The night had long descended by the time Angela Dooney's mother, Madame Vivian Okafor, arrived at the party venue. The guests had dispersed, the decorations now hanging limply as the wind carried the scent of spilled drinks and crushed food. The laughter and joy that once filled the air had been replaced with an eerie silence, except for the muffled sobs that came from the ground where Angela and Bella still lay. Madame Vivian's heart shattered at the sight before her, her daughter and granddaughter clinging to each other, their dresses stained with dust, their faces streaked with endless tears. She rushed toward them, gathering them into her embrace as Angela shook violently, unable to form words. "Mummy, he left us, he took everything," Angela choked out between gasps. Vivian closed her eyes in anguish, stroking her daughter's back while whispering, "Get up, my child. You cannot stay here, you must stand up." But Angela couldn't move. She felt paralyzed, as if getting up meant accepting the reality of her new life, one without Maxwell, one where she had nothing. It was Bella's whimper that finally forced her to act. Holding her daughter's small trembling hands, she allowed her mother to lead them both away from the wreckage of what had once been her perfect world. The days that followed were suffocating. Angela and Bella moved into her mother's modest bungalow in Olanji district. The walls felt too small, the air too thick. She wasn't used to waking up in a different bed, staring at the ceiling with the painful realization that the nightmare wasn't over. It had only just begun. She tried for Bella's sake to hold on, to pretend, to fake a smile. "Daddy is just busy with work," she told her one evening when the little girl had asked why he hadn't called. He'll come when he can." Bella blinked up at her with sad, tired eyes. "But he said he can't stay," she whispered, twirling a strand of her hair. "He said he doesn't want us anymore." Angela's throat burned. "That's not true, baby, he loves you." "Then why did he push me away?" Bella's voice broke. Angela couldn't say anything. She only pulled her daughter into her arms and wept silently as Bella's tears soaked her shoulder. Maxwell Dooney had not called, he had not texted. It was as if they had been erased from his life. He had not even bothered to check how Bella was handling the abandonment. Days turned into weeks. The pain never eased. Angela stopped eating properly. She stopped talking to people. Her mother, her friends, her family, all of them tried to reach her, but she locked herself inside the small guest room, curled into a ball, staring at the walls as if they held the answers she desperately sought. What was I living for? She asked herself repeatedly. Her mother knocked every day. "My child, please come out. You have a daughter to take care of. Life must go on." But how could life go on when she felt like she was drowning? Her nights were the worst. She replayed the humiliation over and over again. The guests staring, the whispers, the laughter that had turned into shock, and Maxwell's cold, emotionless face as he shattered her heart in front of everyone. Then the image of Bella crying and reaching for her father, the way he pushed her away. Angela screamed into her pillow each time she thought about it. "You are a monster, Maxwell Dooney. A wicked, soulless man," she sobbed into the darkness. "May you never know peace. May you suffer for this." But Maxwell wasn't suffering. While she was wasting away, he was out there living the life. The same friends who whispered to her in sympathy were the same ones who whispered behind her back, telling stories of how Maxwell was now seen everywhere with Maria Kari, how he flaunted her openly, taking her to expensive restaurants in High Crest Plaza, shopping for her in the finest boutiques in Olanji City Mall, how he laughed and held her the way he used to hold Angela, how Mary posted pictures of them in luxury hotels, her captions reading, "A love like no other." Angela's blood boiled each time she heard about them. How could he have moved on so fast? How could he have abandoned them without looking back? Had their love meant nothing to him? Had the years they spent together been a lie? Her mother tried to pull her back to reality, urging her to get out of bed, to eat, to live again. "You still have Bella," Madame Vivian reminded her one evening, sitting by her bed, running a soothing hand over her hair. "She needs you, my child. You cannot allow this man to destroy you both." But Angela just stared at the ceiling, fresh tears sliding down the side of her face. She was empty, broken beyond repair. And worst of all, she no longer knew how to fight. The days dragged on, blending into weeks, then months. The walls of Madame Vivian Okafor's small bungalow had become a silent witness to the pain that clung to Angela like a second skin. The light in her eyes had dimmed, her laughter a distant memory, but her mother couldn't bear it any longer. Every morning Madame Vivian would sit beside Angela's bed, speaking softly, pleading, urging her to rise. "My child, you cannot continue like this. You still have life ahead of you, and you have Bella, your own flesh and blood, who looks up to you." Angela would only stare at the ceiling, feeling the heavy weight of betrayal pressing down on her chest. "I know your pain feels unbearable, but my daughter, when one door closes, another one will surely open. You must find the strength to walk again." Her mother's words echoed in her mind long after she had left the room. Each day she would return whispering encouragement, reminding Angela of the woman she used to be. "Angela, don't let him win. He has moved on, yet you are here drowning. If you won't do it for yourself, do it for Bella." Bella! That name was the thread that held her together, the one thing that stopped her from vanishing completely. One evening, after days of her mother's persistence, Angela walked into Bella's room for the first time in weeks. The little girl sat on the bed, hugging her stuffed bunny, staring at the window as if waiting for someone to return. Her daughter had been waiting for her. The realization hit Angela like cold water. She had been so lost in grief, so consumed by her pain that she had forgotten Bella had lost someone too. Tears pricked at her eyes as she stepped forward, wrapping her arms tightly around her child. "Mummy is here," she whispered, "and I promise no matter what, we're going to be okay." Bella nodded against her mother's chest, her tiny fingers gripping Angela's dress. It was the first step. The next morning, for the first time since the nightmare at the party, Angela stepped outside. She inhaled the fresh morning air, letting it fill her lungs. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Slowly, she began picking up the broken pieces of her life. She started eating again, forcing herself to finish the meals her mother prepared. She took short walks around the neighborhood, feeling the sun on her skin. She brushed Bella's hair every morning, tied her ribbons neatly, and made sure she smiled before she left for school. She was still hurting, still healing, but with her mother and daughter by her side, she no longer felt like she was drowning. Meanwhile, in another part of Omakwa City, Maxwell's life was taking a different turn. At first, everything seemed perfect. Mary Akari was beautiful, exciting, and younger than Angela, exactly what he had wanted. She took him to expensive places, introduced him to her lavish circle of friends, and filled his life with what he thought was happiness. But as the weeks turned to months, cracks began to show. Mary wasn't like Angela. She wasn't soft-spoken or patient. She was controlling. At first, Maxwell brushed it off as her being carefree, but then she started monitoring his every move, questioning where he went, demanding he explain his spending, and dictating his decisions. "Why are you sending money to your relation? You should be focused on me, not them. I don't like when you talk to your old friends. I am the only company you need." Maxwell, who had always been the head of his household, suddenly found himself trapped. Whenever he tried to speak up, to push back, she would twist the argument, making him feel like the villain. "Oh, so now you don't love me anymore, after everything I left behind for you." Every time he tried to argue, she manipulated him into apologizing. It wasn't long before Mary started belittling him in public. One night, at a high-end restaurant, Maxwell had disagreed with her choice of wine, playfully suggesting they try something different. Mary's response, a loud, mocking laugh. "You don't even know fine wine, Maxwell. Just stick to what you know, working hard and making money. Leave the classy choices to me." The people at the table chuckled, some exchanging knowing looks. Maxwell's face burned with humiliation, but he forced a smile. When they got home, he tried to confront her about it. "Mary, why did you embarrass me like that?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, don't be so sensitive. If you can't handle a little joke, maybe you're not as strong as I thought." And just like that, the conversation ended, like every other time he tried to assert himself. But the worst part was the spending. Mary loved luxury, and she made sure Maxwell paid double for it all. Weekend trips to exotic resorts, designer bags, jewelry, nothing was ever enough. He tried to slow down the spending, but Mary wouldn't hear of it. "Are you going broke?" she scoffed one evening, waving off his concerns. "I left my comfort for you, Maxwell. The least you can do is make sure I live the life I deserve." So he kept paying, kept quiet, kept sinking. The life he thought he wanted was beginning to suffocate him. Meanwhile, for the first time in months, Angela felt like she could breathe again. The suffocating weight of heartbreak that had once held her captive was slowly lifting, allowing her to see life beyond the wreckage Maxwell had left behind. It hadn't been easy. The journey from devastation to healing had been long, filled with silent tears in the dead of night and moments of weakness where she almost allowed the past to consume her. But with each passing day she chose herself. She no longer spent her mornings staring blankly at the ceiling, lost in thoughts of what could have been. Instead, she woke up early, helped Bella get ready for school, and spent time with her mother, Madame Vivian, who had been her rock through the storm. More than anything, Angela had found purpose again. For years, sewing had been nothing more than a hobby, something she did when she had spare time, stitching little dresses for Bella or making adjustments to her own clothes. But after months of soul-searching, she decided to turn her passion into something profitable. With financial support from her mother, she rented a small shop in Onidiri Market, where she began selling beautifully sewn outfits. What started as a simple business soon flourished beyond her expectations. Customers admired her craftsmanship, praising the precision of her stitches and the uniqueness of her designs. Word spread quickly, and before long, Angela had a steady stream of clients, women looking for custom-made dresses, brides in search of the perfect fit, mothers wanting something special for their daughters. She was thriving. Her days were filled with purpose, her heart lighter than it had been in months. She laughed more, spent evenings walking through Makoma Park with Bella and her mother, and reconnected with old friends who had stood by her through her darkest times. There were moments, of course, when her thoughts drifted back to Maxwell. Memories of their early days, the promises they had made, and the love they once shared would sometimes creep into her mind. But whenever she felt herself slipping into nostalgia, she shook the thoughts away. Maxwell was her past. Her future was something she was building on her own terms. Meanwhile, Maxwell Dooney's world was beginning to crumble. What had once felt like a dream had morphed into a suffocating nightmare. At first, he had convinced himself that Mary's demands were a phase, that she was only acting this way because she was adjusting to their new life together. But as time went on, her control over him became unbearable. She dictated where he went, what he did, and how he spent his money. "You don't need to visit your family all the time," she had scoffed one evening when he mentioned going to see his younger brother. "They only want your money anyway." At first he ignored it, but the more time passed, the more isolated he became. She scrutinized his spending, making sure that every naira went towards her desires. Expensive vacations, designer clothes, extravagant dinners, nothing was ever enough. And the worst part? She enjoyed humiliating him. Whenever they were out with friends, she would make snide remarks, reminding everyone who controlled the finances in their relationship. "Maxwell, you wouldn't understand fine things like this. Just let me handle the bills after all. I know how to make good choices." Laughter would erupt from their table, but Maxwell didn't laugh. His frustration grew, but Mary knew how to twist things in her favor. Whenever he tried to assert himself, she manipulated him into thinking he was the problem. "You're being too sensitive, Maxwell. Do you want me to leave? Because I can find someone who appreciates me." That single sentence was enough to make him back down every time. To keep up with her extravagant lifestyle, he had started borrowing money. At first, it was small amounts, just enough to cover some of her excesses. But as her demands increased, so did the size of his debts. He took loans from banks, from private lenders, even from old friends, anything to ensure that Mary didn't look elsewhere. His once solid financial foundation was cracking, and for the first time fear crept into his mind. Late at night when Mary was asleep, Maxwell would sit in the living room, staring at his empty bank account. He would think about Angela and Bella. Where were they now? Was Angela still broken? Did she still cry over him? A part of him wanted to believe she was miserable without him. But then he would remember the fire in her eyes that night, the way she had crumbled yet still held on to their daughter. She had always been stronger than he gave her credit for. Maxwell would shake off the thought, reminding himself that he had made the right choice. But deep down, a small voice whispered that he had made the biggest mistake of his life. Meanwhile, Angela stood in the middle of her new apartment, her heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and pride. The sun filtered through the large windows, casting a golden glow across the neatly arranged living room. The space was hers, a symbol of her resilience, her strength, and the life she had rebuilt from the ground up. It had taken months of dedication, but she had done it. She no longer relied on her mother's generosity. Instead, she was in a position where she could give back. Madame Vivian, the woman who had held her up when she couldn't stand on her own, would never lack anything. Angela made sure of that. She covered her mother's medical bills, restocked her kitchen regularly, and even gave her a monthly allowance. "You've done more than enough for me, Mama," she would say. "Now it's my turn to take care of you." Madame Vivian always smiled in response, pride shining in her wise eyes. Bella, now more cheerful than ever, had everything she needed. Angela ensured her daughter never felt the absence of a father. She enrolled her in a prestigious school, filled her weekends with fun activities, and surrounded her with unwavering love. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day. "Mummy, we don't need Daddy, do we?" Bella had asked one evening while they sat on the balcony watching the sunset. Angela exhaled slowly before pulling her daughter close. "No, my love, we are enough for each other." And she meant it. Angela's life was full again, not just because of her business success, but because she had people who genuinely loved and supported her. Her mother, her daughter, and her friends, who had never left her side, were her greatest cheerleaders. They had celebrated every milestone with her, reminded her of her worth when she doubted herself, and laughed with her on the days she chose joy over pain. But just when she thought she had fully moved on, whispers of Maxwell's downfall began to reach her. At first, she didn't know what to feel. Should she be satisfied that karma had finally caught up with him? Should she pity the man who had once been everything to her, but had thrown her and their daughter away like they meant nothing? She wasn't sure. All she knew was that it served him right. Maxwell Dooney sat alone in a small, dimly lit apartment in Gabara district, staring blankly at the cracked ceiling. His once flourishing life had crumbled into nothing. His debts had piled up so high that they were now impossible to ignore. The luxurious lifestyle he had built with Mary was nothing but a memory. The first blow had come when his house was taken from him. The debt collectors had stormed in one evening, giving him no choice but to pack whatever little belongings he could carry. He had begged, pleaded for more time, but there was nothing left to give. The second blow had come in the most brutal way. Mary had left him. Not only had she walked out of his life, but she had also emptied the last of his savings before disappearing. He had come home one evening to find the apartment stripped of everything valuable, his expensive wristwatches, his designer clothes, even his television. A single note sat on the bare kitchen counter. "Maxwell, this was fun while it lasted, but I can't keep living like this. I need a man who can provide for me. Take care of yourself or don't, I don't care." His hands had trembled as he read the words over and over again. She had used him just as he had used Angela. But unlike Angela, who had been nothing but good to him, Mary had never truly cared. And now he had nothing. His friends had distanced themselves, unwilling to associate with a broke man drowning in debt. His family members, the same ones he had once ignored for Mary's sake, had grown cold toward him. He was alone, and for the first time he truly understood what he had lost. Maxwell Dooney had lost everything. The reality of his downfall had settled in like an unshakable curse. His once grand lifestyle had crumbled beneath the weight of his own greed and arrogance. His so-called friends had abandoned him, his debts had swallowed him whole, and the woman for whom he had sacrificed his marriage had vanished into thin air, taking the last of his wealth with her. There was only one person left to turn to, Angela. He fought the thought for days, battling his pride. How could he return to the woman he had humiliated so publicly? The same woman he had discarded like an old newspaper when he thought he had found something better? But desperation has a way of silencing even the loudest ego. One evening, with nothing left but the clothes on his back and a heavy heart, he made his way to Madame Vivian's house, hoping for mercy. He knocked, swallowing his pride as he waited. The door opened slightly, and there she was, his former mother-in-law, the woman who had once treated him like a son. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes burned with the memory of what he had done to her daughter. "What do you want, Maxwell?" she asked, arms crossed. "Please, I need to speak to Angela." Vivian scoffed, shaking her head. "You have some nerve coming here. After what you did, you think you can just walk back into her life?" Maxwell lowered his gaze, ashamed. "I know I don't deserve it, but I need to make things right. I need to see her, please." Vivian exhaled sharply, her face filled with disgust. "You think saying please is enough? You think you can undo all the pain you caused my daughter? The pain you caused Bella." Maxwell's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "I just want to apologize. I just want to see my daughter." Vivian studied him for a long moment, then sighed. "I will let her know you came, but don't get your hopes up." And with that, she shut the door in his face. Maxwell stood outside for a long time, staring at the wooden frame, hoping against hope that Angela would give him a chance. 4 days later, his prayers were answered. A message arrived on his phone. Angela had agreed to see him. He let out a breath of relief, his heart pounding with excitement. Maybe this was it. Maybe she would take him back. Maybe he could fix what he had broken. The meeting was scheduled at her new apartment, a detail that stung more than he wanted to admit. She had moved on without him, built a life that didn't include him. But that would change. He would make sure of it. Determined to prove his sincerity, he went shopping with the last of his money, buying gifts for Bella, dolls, dresses, chocolates. He wanted his daughter to see that he still cared, that he had made mistakes but was willing to make amends. He arrived at the apartment, feeling a strange mix of hope and nervousness. But when he stepped inside, his stomach dropped. The place was full of people: Angela's mother, her friends, some of their former mutual acquaintances, even neighbors who had been present on the day of Bella's disastrous birthday party. It felt like a setup, but he told himself that maybe Angela wanted to celebrate their reunion with the people who had always supported her. He sat down, gripping the gifts tightly, trying to steady his nerves as the evening progressed. People chatted, sipped drinks, and laughed, but something felt off. And then Angela stood up. The room fell silent. She walked to the center, her eyes locking onto his. "Maxwell," she said, her voice sharp yet calm. "Do you know why I agreed to see you today?" His throat felt dry. "I was hoping you'd give me a chance to make things right." Her lips curled into a smirk. "A chance? You think you deserve a chance?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Angela, please. I know I messed up. I was blind, stupid. But I've suffered, and You've suffered?" She cut him off, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Maxwell froze. "You think what you went through was suffering? Do you know what real suffering is, Maxwell?" She took a slow step toward him. "Real suffering is watching your daughter cry herself to sleep every night, wondering why the father who promised to love her abandoned her like she was nothing." Maxwell's head hung low. "Real suffering," she continued, voice rising, "is standing in front of people who respected you, only to be publicly humiliated by the man who was supposed to protect you. I was too simple, too archaic, too decent, remember? Now that you're broken and penniless, you suddenly crave decency? You thought you wanted excitement. How exciting is your empty apartment and unpaid debts, Maxwell? How thrilling is begging for mercy at the door of the woman you humiliated?" The room remained deathly silent, everyone hanging on to her every word. "You didn't just leave us, Maxwell. You destroyed us, and now you think you can just walk back in. That I'd actually consider taking you back?" Maxwell swallowed hard. "I just wanted a chance to see my daughter, to fix things." Angela let out a bitter laugh. "Fix things? Maxwell, you can't fix what you broke." She turned to the audience, addressing them as much as she was addressing him. "He thought I'd be desperate, that I'd still be that woman who begged him to stay. But look at me now. She spread her arms wide. I am not the same woman he threw away. I have rebuilt myself and I did it without him. Maxwell's chest tightened. Angela, please get out. His breath hitched. What? I said, get out of my house. Take your gifts, take your apologies, take your regret and get out of my house. We want nothing from you, not your remorse, not your excuses, and certainly not your presence. You are nothing to us now. Just a bad memory we finally learned to forget. He looked around, hoping for support. But the faces staring back at him were cold, unforgiving. Bella sat beside her grandmother, staring at him like he was a stranger. Because he was. Maxwell felt his legs tremble as he slowly stood up. Angela walked to the door, opening it wide. Goodbye, Maxwell. This time it's forever. With every ounce of pride stripped from him, he walked out. The door slammed shut behind him. And just like that, he was erased from their lives permanently. We've come to the end of this story. Please subscribe to my channel to support me. Thank you.